Hey guys, tonight we're stepping off the edge of the map and into the misty unknown. You're about to wander where few dreamers dare into the stone-carved halls of the mythical dwarf kingdom, hidden deep beneath the bones of the world. It starts with a bridge that doesn't quite belong, fog that whispers, and a single step that changes everything. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you've ever had a strange dream that left you wondering if maybe, just maybe, it was real, drop it in the comments. I love reading them. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It begins with a path that shouldn't be there. You're on your usual forest trail. Maybe you've walked it 100 times, or maybe it's your first time. But tonight, the trees bend just a little differently, as if nodding towards something off to the left. And there it is, a narrow stone bridge, stretching over a mist-filled ravine you're certain wasn't there yesterday. The bridge has no rails. Its stones are warm to the touch, and each one bears the faint impression of tiny boot-shaped footprints, much smaller than yours. The air buzzes with a soft hum, like someone humming from beneath the ground. And though there's no wind, the fog shifts with purpose, curling around your ankles, nudging you forward like a polite but insistent butler. You pause. You should turn back. You don't. Each step forward feels like you're pressing deeper into someone else's memory. Halfway across, the mist rises. You can't see the beginning of the bridge anymore, or the end. Just you, floating in a world of grey. Then, mid-step, the stone beneath you dips. It doesn't crack or crumble. It sinks almost like it's sighing. You stumble, catch yourself, and look down. The fog clears for a breath, just long enough for you to see that the ravine below isn't empty. It's filled with something glowing and coiled like the spine of a sleeping dragon made of copper. That's when the bridge shifts sideways. Not dramatically, just a half step to the left, like it's adjusting its alignment. The stones click into new grooves. You swear you hear them whisper, words in a language that feels both ancient and oddly familiar, like lullabies hummed backward. You walk on because what else is there to do? The fog begins to thin, not lift, just retreat slightly, as if respecting your curiosity. Ahead, the stonework changes. The bridge narrows and begins to slope downward, curving in a spiral you don't remember stepping into. The air gets heavier, thicker, tasting faintly of iron and rosemary. There's a final step. It looks like all the others, but it feels like a decision. When your foot touches down, you don't hear a sound, but you feel it, a low pulse in the bones of the stone, as if something ancient has just been notified. The mist vanishes, not in a poof or a swirl, but in a slow ripple outward, revealing a massive cliffside with a black opening at its center. A cave. No more than that. An entrance. The arch is perfectly round, carved with hundreds of geometric symbols you can't decipher, and at the very top is a relief of a giant hammer suspended mid-swing. The air around the opening breathes. There's no other way to describe it. Inhale, exhale. The stone itself seems to rise and fall like it's alive. You step toward it. As you cross the threshold, your ears pop. The ground vibrates once beneath your shoes like a distant drumbeat echoing through the belly of the earth. Inside the walls, shimmer with veins of orange and blue crystal. They pulse with dim light, in sync with the cave's breathing. Your shadow flickers wildly taller and then shorter, as though unsure what size it's supposed to be in this place. You hear tapping, not the natural kind, not dripping water or the groan of rock shifting. This is rhythmic, intentional, like someone or many someones are chipping away at stone in an organized pattern. It stops every few seconds, then resumes with a slightly different tempo, like a code you don't know how to read. Further in the passage widens. The walls become smoother, more deliberate, clearly shaped by hands or tools. Occasionally, you pass iron lanterns that light up when you're close, then dim when you move past, like shy fireflies trained to perform. And then you notice it, the ceiling is much lower now. Not uncomfortable, but specific, built for someone shorter than you. There's a small bench carved directly from the wall, just your size if you were about 3 feet tall. On it rests a mug still steaming with something that smells like cinnamon and soot. Next to it is a note scratched into the stone itself, Surface Walker. If you drink this, you agree to the old terms. No signature, no explanation. You don't drink it. Not yet. But you do sit. Because suddenly the cave exhales again, and you feel it deep in your lungs. A wave of warmth, like a welcome you didn't know you'd been hoping for. Somewhere deeper in the tunnel, a low horn sounds. One long note, then 2 short ones, then silence. Until from the shadows ahead, you hear the tiniest of boots. Click, click, click. They're coming. You rise. The mug is still steaming. The path leads forward, not backward. The bridge behind you is gone. So forward it is. And as you begin to walk again, the tunnel seems to lean in just slightly, like it's listening. Something deep beneath the earth has accepted your presence. And it is curious. The tunnel breathes again, longer this time. A slow inhale, like it's preparing to speak. You walk deeper the stone floor, now marked with grooves, perfectly symmetrical, as though the entire pathway was carved with a compass and an unreasonable amount of time. You begin to notice tiny handprints in the walls, some smudged in coal dust, others neatly etched into the mineral surface like proud signatures. A few are accompanied by symbols, triangles inside circles, a hammer crossed with a feather, a spiral coiled inward. All of it foreign, but not chaotic. There's intent here, a silent language. The tapping resumes. Faster now, louder, then quieter again. It's like you're walking through a symphony where the instruments don't know you're listening. The air grows warmer, thicker. You round a sharp bend, and the tunnel widens without warning, revealing an enormous chamber. And it's alive, not with creatures, but with motion. The walls pulse with faint light, every crystal vein throbbing to a slow beat. Huge stalactites hang overhead, dripping not water, but some sort of glowing blue fluid that evaporates mid-fall. There are steam vents carved into the ground, opening and closing in rhythm like mechanical lungs. And then you hear it a low wheeze. The chamber exhales. It's no metaphor now. The entire cave is breathing, and not softly. It's the breath of something massive, sleeping, just out of reach. You feel your shirt shift with the wind of it, your hair lifting slightly. It should be terrifying, and it is. But only in the same way standing too close to the edge of a canyon is terrifying awe, laced with just enough fear to keep your steps careful. A narrow bridge carved from what looks like volcanic glass leads across the chamber. Beneath it, nothing. Just fog so thick and shimmering it might as well be liquid moonlight. You cross careful not to look down too long, lest you start seeing shapes that aren't actually there. Halfway across the bridge vibrates. You freeze. Something below knocks 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. You wait. Nothing else. Just the cave's steady breath and your own pulse thumping a little too loudly in your ears. You keep walking. On the far side, the tunnel resumes, only now it's shaped less like a tube and more like a corridor. Flat floor, squared off ceiling pillars, every 20 steps carved with glowing runes. Each one flickers slightly as you pass like candles, deciding whether you're worth the energy. The air smells different here, metallic with a hint of fried onions and something you'd swear is pine sap. You glance up and catch a glimpse of something skittering along a beam overhead. Tiny, fast, possibly wearing a hat. The next chamber is smaller, rounder, and surprisingly cozy. A cluster of glowing mushrooms lights the space in gentle lavender tones. The floor is covered in rugs, stitched from threads of copper and green moss. Against the far wall, there's a desk carved from a single piece of slate, and behind it stands your first real encounter. 3 feet tall, stocky. A beard that splits into 3 braids, each tied with little gears. The dwarf is wearing thick goggles pushed up onto his forehead and a leather apron covered in soot and what might be cookie crumbs. His arms are crossed. Well, look who the mountain dragged in. His voice is deep, far deeper than his size would suggest, like a cello dipped in gravel. He doesn't look pleased, but he doesn't look hostile either. You open your mouth to explain, but he raises a gloved finger. No talking yet. First we smell you. You blink. He steps forward and sniffs an exaggerated, cartoonishly loud sniff, starting at your boots and working up to your hairline. He frowns. moss, thunder, surface dust, and regret. Bit of late night cheese, but no echo bite. That's good. You're clean. He nods once, satisfied. You may speak. You try to explain what little you understand. The bridge, the mist, the breathing rock. He listens, grunting occasionally, until you mention the footprints and the steaming mug. That stops him. His eyes narrow behind the goggles. You drank it. You shake your head. No. He exhales audibly. Good. That's for the mole diplomats. Potent stuff. Gives you tunnel vision in the literal sense. He paces in front of you now, muttering, "Well, you're not the first. Surface walkers wander through now and then. Some leave. Some stay. Some, well." He gestures vaguely toward a spot where a stone helmet sits on a pedestal. We don't talk about Gertie. You hear a muffled snicker from somewhere in the shadows. He ignores it. I'm Bofric Gatekeeper 3rd Class, which means I have the unholy joy of deciding whether you're allowed past the threshold tunnel. He jabs a thumb toward a heavy iron door at the back of the chamber. But before that, you'll need a map. He reaches under the desk and heaves out a flat, rectangular slab of bronze. It looks heavy enough to crack pavement. He sets it on a table between you and him and unrolls it with effort. It doesn't flex like paper. It clanks. This, he says, is the map of living roots, forged by the cartosmiths of old. It updates itself. You lean closer. It's covered in lines and symbols, all etched directly into the metal. But as you look, the lines move. Just a little. They shift, like they're breathing too, rerouting, curling, unwinding. It's mesmerizing. It won't help, Bofric adds cheerfully. Not really. But it does look impressive. He rolls it back up, drops it into a leather tube, and slings it over your shoulder before you can object. It hums faintly against your back. Now, he says, stepping toward the iron door. You've got choices ahead. Weird ones. Stupid ones. Some that'll feel like dreams, others that'll feel like regrets. He pushes the door open with both hands, revealing a dark tunnel slick with veins of red light. You'll be fine, he mutters. Probably. And with a final nod, he adds, don't lick anything that glows green unless it winks first. Trust me. The door slams shut behind you before you can ask what that even means. The tunnel ahead feels different. Not just the lighting, though. The red glow that pulses through the crystal veins does set your nerves on edge. But something deeper under the skin of it. The ground doesn't just carry your footsteps. It seems to absorb them. The stone underfoot is warm, and every so often you swear it shivers when you walk across it. As if reacting to your presence, you pause. The metal map tube on your back hums again, more insistently this time. You glance down at the rolled bronze cylinder hanging by your hip. When you touch it, it goes still. You get the sense it's doing its best. You're just not very good at reading vibrating slabs of ancient alloy. Yet, the tunnel narrows, then opens wide again. And suddenly, you find yourself standing on a cliff's edge, indoors. A vast hollow spreads out before you, like a cathedral turned sideways and buried under mountains. Bridges hang in mid-air, suspended by thick copper cables that groan faintly. Suspended gondolas swing across the open space, some carrying crates, others passengers. And everywhere there are dwarves, not just walking or working, but watching. Hundreds of tiny eyes peer at you from balconies, scaffolding windows carved straight into the rock walls. Some hold pickaxes or shovels. Others wave small glowing stones at you like lighters at a concert. One particularly enthusiastic dwarf leans so far over a railing to get a look at you that his helmet slips off, plummeting into the abyss below with a melodramatic clang. A voice beside you says, "Don't worry. That happens more than you think." You jump. A dwarf with a mushroom hat and one gold boot appears from seemingly nowhere. He's holding a stick with a reflective shard tied to one end, like a homemade disco wand. You must be the lost one, surface walker. You've got that dazed but open-minded look. He grins. "Follow me." You follow. He doesn't walk. He struts like a tour guide whose real job is probably illegal. You can barely keep up. The path zigzags across a hanging bridge so narrow you're surprised it even holds your weight. Below, steam, vents hiss, and distant chanting echoes up from somewhere so far beneath you it feels like another dream inside this one. "What's your name anyway?" He calls over his shoulder. You tell him. He whistles. Not bad. Sounds almost dwarven if you drop the vowels and snort halfway through. You don't try. The path leads into what looks like a carved-out plaza of glowing mushroom stalks, each twice your height. They're knotted at the tops like umbrellas. Beneath them, stalls made of woven root and hammered copper form a bustling, chaotic market. A sign above the entrance reads, "Squiggle Hall Market of the Unnecessary and Oddly Useful." And then it hits you, the smell, sweet and sour and musty and spiced. Burnt sugar, ozone, melted rock candy. Your nostrils are assaulted and delighted all at once. The dwarf in the mushroom hat waves a hand. "This way, no time to get cursed by the pickle sellers." Again, you dodge a stand of purple tubers that seem to be arguing with each other. Another stall is run by a family of identical triplets with glowing eyes and precisely no noses. They offer you a bowl of something and you politely decline. At the center of the market, the floor rises into a circular platform where a tall, by dwarf standards figure stands atop a crate. He's wearing a cloak made entirely of old bread tags and holding up what appears to be a spoon wrapped in moonlight. "Behold," he cries, "the eternal ladle." A crowd oos. You keep walking. Your guide stops suddenly in front of a stall carved from what looks like a fossilized snail shell. A sign hanging over it reads, "Adopt a rock." Inside are rows and rows of smooth stones. Some are painted, some blink. One of them is levitating a few inches above its cushion and making a noise that sounds like hiccuping lava. "You want one?" the mushroom hat dwarf asks. "They don't bite unless you ignore them." You pick up a small pebble shaped like a teardrop. It purrs. "I think it likes you," the stallkeeper whispers. "You'll have to name it. Something that ends in a silent Q works best." You name it Clovq. It glows softly. The moment you put Clovk in your pocket, the bronze map tube hums again, this time stronger, deeper. You pull it out. The symbols on its surface shift dramatically, the roots curling and repositioning themselves like clock hands on caffeine. A new symbol appears, a spiral wrapped around a pickaxe. It points toward a passage you hadn't even noticed until now, half hidden behind a curtain of green fog. Your guide raises an eyebrow. "Well then, looks like you've been summoned." "By who, you ask?" He shrugs. "By what more like?" "You'll see." You head toward the fog. It parts as you approach, like dry ice fleeing from an oncoming warmth, and the air smells like charcoal and antique furniture. There's a sound, too, just under the threshold of hearing rhythmic thuds. Not mechanical, not quite musical. Almost like chanting, if chanting had a heartbeat. The corridor curves. The stone here is black and glossy, etched with runes that flash only when you pass them. There's no torchlight, just the dull red pulse of distant forges and the occasional flicker of bioluminescent mold in elegant floral patterns. You reach a ledge. Below, hundreds of dwarves work in synchronized movement. Pickaxes rise and fall in perfect rhythm. Each swing lands with a hollow tone tuned like an instrument. Together, they form a beat that loops, shifts, evolves, building not just tunnels, but music. And as they work, they sing. Not words, not really, just sounds layered in harmony, looping and folding back into themselves like woven thread. You realize suddenly that it's not just singing, it's opening something. Because in the far wall, a seam begins to glow. A crack of blue light appears. And then something in the wall blinks back at you. The blink wasn't subtle, it was deliberate, slow. A single glowing eyelid parting from the stone wall like butter melting away from cold toast. And then another eye opens just below the first, and then another, until what you thought was merely a seam in the rock is suddenly a face. A massive one. Made of stone, yes, but shifting with expression, like clay in a hot hand. You stare. It stares back. The chanting dwarves don't stop. In fact, they intensify the rhythm, tightening the tones, layering deeper. There's a phrase now repeated, echoed, passed down rows of working miners like a braided rope. Tuldrendorun. Tuldrendorun. You don't know the words, but your bones seem to. They ring in your chest like a tuning fork held too close to the heart. Then, with a deep groan that rumbles through the entire chamber, the stone face recedes into the wall and a doorway opens where its mouth once was. The chanting halts. All the dwarves turn in unison and look up at you. One wearing a helmet shaped suspiciously like a soup pot cups his hands and calls. The path opens for you, surface walker. The hammered map has spoken. They cheer. You wave awkwardly, suddenly aware that your shirt is probably too wrinkled for prophecy. You descend carefully into the work site where the dwarves part like a tide, nodding as you pass. Some of them press small objects into your hand. A gemstone that smells like cinnamon, a folded leaf with teeth, a beetle that refuses to stop waving at you. You accept them all, tucking them into pockets that seem to stretch a bit wider in this place, as if aware you'll need more room than usual. At the glowing mouth door, a pair of ancient hinges creak as you push it open and step through. Immediately, the light changes. It's golden in here, soft, warm, thick, like honey poured slowly over velvet. And the room, oh, the room. You're standing in a vast circular hall with walls made of bronze panels, each engraved with maps, diagrams, and tiny runes that shift subtly when you're not looking directly at them. In the center of the room is a towering table, not wooden or stone, but hammered entirely from dozens of mismatched metals. Tin fused with platinum, copper riveted into steel. It hums. There are chairs around the table, none of them matching. Some look like throne room relics, others like something rescued from a kindergarten classroom. And standing around the table are dwarves, 8 of them, each more regal than the last. Beards like rivers, robes stitched with constellations, eyes that glow faintly in the golden light, and hats that range from severe steel crowns to, is that one wearing a kettle lid? The tallest of them slams a rune staff on the floor. Surface walker, she declares. You stand before the gilded council. A dwarf with a monocle nods solemnly. We were expecting you. No, we weren't, mutters another, thumbing through a scroll. The calendar clearly says, next week was for the dreaming badger. Quiet glim, the leader says. The hammered map has spoken, and its timing is never wrong. You step forward. The leader raises an eyebrow. Do you know why you're here? You shake your head. She smiles. Perfect. Another dwarf, this one wearing goggles so thick they make his head look like a telescope, waves you toward a chair. You sit. It sighs beneath you, then adjusts its shape until it's uncomfortably comfortable. The council begins to speak, sometimes in turn, often all at once. A barrage of questions and proclamations and bickering that somehow makes perfect sense to them. But mostly sounds like, has the echo pulse shifted? Did you bring us a surface trinket? Did anyone feed the map again? Do you dream in spirals or in ladders? I still say, the last human tracked mud through the sacred hall of socks. Eventually, the leader quiets them with another slam of her rune staff. Enough. We will ask only one question, and you will answer truthfully. She leans in. Are you here by accident? Or are you meant to be here? You try to answer, but the moment your lips part, something strange happens. The golden light around the room gathers at your throat like dust pulled toward a magnet, and your voice comes out not as sound, but as image. Your memories, the bridge, the fog, the blinking stone, the whispering mushrooms, the map, the pet rock named Klovk. The air hums with your story. The council watches, eyes unblinking. The one with the kettle lid hat weeps openly into a beard napkin. When it ends, there is silence. Then the leader smiles. Well then, you are meant. A bell rings somewhere unseen. Not a chime, but a thick, molten toll that seems to come from under your feet and also above your head. The walls ripple. The goggled dwarf hops off his chair. Time for the ritual of hospitality. The others cheer. Before you can ask what that means, two small doorways slide open at either side of the chamber. Through one comes a procession of dwarves bearing platters of food that sizzle, burble, sparkle, or smoke. Through the other comes what looks like a conga line of musical instruments with legs. None of this feels like government, but all of it feels like ceremony. The leader nods to you. Eat, rest, the deep delights await. And after that, the kingdom will show you its true heart. The table splits down the middle, rotating with a mechanical hum. Your chair carries you backward politely to a smaller table with a flickering centerpiece that smells of roasted pumpkin and distant lightning. You realize something odd. You aren't hungry. Not in the regular way. But your bones, they're starving. You lift a fork, shaped like a lightning bolt, and dig in. The food is alive. Not in the twitching, creepy, slither off your plate kind of way, but in the warm, mischievous, you're being fed by a circus, with an herbalism, degree kind of way. The first bite is a soft dumpling filled with something that tastes like sunshine if it had a smoky aftertaste. As soon as you swallow the dumpling on your plate, vanishes poof and is replaced by something new. A spiral-shaped pastry that hums very quietly in F-sharp. Around you, dwarves eat with joyful intensity. One is holding a bowl of glowing noodles that leap upward into his mouth like reverse spaghetti. Another spoons something purple and gelatinous from a mug. But every third spoonful transforms into a tiny butterfly that explodes in a puff of cinnamon before reaching his lips. Your plate refills itself with something different every time you blink. Each dish is more absurd than the last. At one point, a cube of translucent jelly slides across your plate under its own power and politely bumps your fork. You eat it. It tastes like the moment right before rain. A dwarf slides onto the bench beside you, holding a goblet carved from a single quartz geode. She's wearing a vest made entirely of what appear to be postage stamps, and a beard that's braided into a single tight coil. Good food, yeah? She says, elbowing you gently. You nod. What is this? She grins. Deep delights. They feed the parts of you that don't usually get dinner. Memories. Moods. That weird itch behind your left knee you can't ever explain. Helps keep the soul supple. You raise your eyebrows mid-chew as your spoon lifts itself and begins folding into a tiny origami goat. It blinks at you and trots away. Across the room, a dwarf is clapping to summon something. A floating dessert arrives in a glass sphere that cracks open like an egg. Inside, what can only be described as liquid nostalgia. You feel teary-eyed just looking at it. Your goblet refills again. Green fizzy smells like mint and comet tails. You sip. Suddenly, you remember the smell of your childhood blanket. Careful with that, says the dwarf next to you. That one's made from fermented moon rind and a splash of dream ink. Too much, and you'll start believing you invented bread. The lights in the hall begin to dim, shifting from golden to a soft amber glow. The musicians in the corner, yes, there are musicians now, strike up a tune that seems to play both forward and backward at once. There's a harpist plucking upside down, and a drummer keeping time with a box of pebbles. A voice echoes from the far end of the room. Time for the feast game. The dwarves cheer and bang utensils on the tables. Your neighbor leans in. You'll want to stand for this. The tables suddenly rise. Yes, rise on narrow copper legs, folding themselves into the walls like obedient insects. The benches scoot away under their own power, nudging gently until you're standing in the center of the room with dozens of beaming dwarves in various stages of fullness and mild delirium. A booming voice calls out, Round 1, Flavor Truths. A dwarf in ceremonial goggles wheels in a spinning wheel covered in icons, a chili pepper, a snowflake, a smiling moon, a bat wearing lipstick, and a question mark with horns. The wheel spins. It lands on the bat. Everyone gasps. From behind a curtain, a server appears, holding a plate of midnight black tarts, dusted with gold powder. One is handed to you. Eat it, says your neighbor. Then say the first true thing that comes to mind. You hesitate, but only a moment. The tart melts on your tongue like burnt sugar and fireflies. Your mouth cools, then heats, then cools again. You feel like your breath is being rearranged alphabetically. And then you say, without meaning to, I used to think clouds were solid until I was 10. And part of me still wants to believe they are. A pause. The room cheers. A dwarf with a face tattoo claps you on the back. Good one. That's exactly the kind of nonsense honesty we love. The game continues. Dwarves confess to sleeping with pickaxes like teddy bears, building shrines to potatoes, and secretly thinking hats might have feelings. When the game winds down, the lights dim further. A hush falls over the room. The leader of the Gilded Council reappears this time wearing robes that shimmer like a beetle's shell. She raises her goblet. Surface walker, she says, you've feasted. You've been witnessed. You've passed the game of flavor truths. Now it's time. The room leans in. Even the chandeliers seem to lean. To walk the hall of names, the dwarves gasp softly. One faints, though it might just be a food nap. She gestures for you to follow. You're guided through a side door down a narrow hallway lit by gently sighing lanterns. The air cools. The smells of the feast fall away, replaced by stone moss and the faint scent of forgotten pages. Your footsteps echo now. The guide doesn't speak. Just walks slowly ahead, a tall staff glowing gently at the tip. Then, without fanfare, the hallway ends in an archway. Inside is darkness. Not total, but deep, like being inside someone else's memory. The guide touches the staff to the floor. The room stirs. Hundreds, no thousands of nameplates emerge from the walls glowing softly. They're carved in stone metal bark, and even what looks like petrified cake. Each bears a name. Some flicker, some shine steady. Some are so faint you have to squint to see them. You walk slowly, and then you hear it, a whisper, right next to your ear. But it's your own voice, speaking your name. You freeze. The glowing plates around you begin to murmur, some with your name, some with others. A wall of memory, of identity, of echo. And then, for a brief, dizzy moment, you forget your own name. Just a few heartbeats. But it's gone, like it was never there. Then, like fog lifting, you remember again. Only now, it feels heavier, older, like you've carried it here before. You glance at the nearest wall. A plate is flickering into existence. Your name, carved in something that looks suspiciously like dreamstone. Below it, a short phrase in dwarvish runes. Passed through, left ripples, might return. You leave the hall of names with your thoughts jangling like wind chimes in a storm. There's something strange about knowing your name has been carved into stone by a kingdom you didn't even know existed this morning, or yesterday, or however long ago it was when you crossed that fog-drenched bridge. Time isn't behaving normally here. It stretches and crinkles like cellophane pulled too tight. Your guide doesn't say much on the walk back, just hums a slow tune that sounds like a lullaby whistled by a teapot. You follow, still trying to memorize the exact tilt of the runes beneath your name, though you know they're already changing. Nothing here stays still. Not even memories. The corridor ahead twists sharply to the right, then opens into a new kind of space, a vast mining shaft, lit by fireflies as big as your fist. They hover near the ceiling like warm stars, casting soft golden light over a crew of dwarves hard at work. But this isn't just mining. This is choreographed. The pickaxes rise and fall in perfect unison, landing with a satisfying metallic clank, followed by a breath-long pause. then clank again. Their boots tap in rhythm. The echoes bounce with intention. It's like a concert performed with rocks and sweat and determination. A dwarf notices you at the edge of the platform. Surface walker, she calls. Come on then, grab a stick and find your beat. Someone hands you a short-handled pickaxe, much lighter than it looks, and points toward a corner of the wall where soft green crystal peeks through layers of shale. You shrug. Might as well. You swing. The pick connects with the stone in a way that feels right. A vibration zips up your arms into your ribs as if the wall were saying hello. The dwarf next to you nods approvingly. Not bad. You've got a rhythm in your bones. Must be all that walking on surfaces. You spend a while working in rhythm with them. No one gives orders. No one needs to. The group breathes together, swings together. They shout out nonsense rhymes to keep pace. Chip, 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 don't kiss the blight, or your nose turns green by Thursday night. There's laughter, occasional dance breaks, and one spontaneous jam session involving a lunchbox and a spoon. Then something shifts. You don't hear it. You feel it. The pitch of the mining song changes. The echoes respond differently. It's subtle at first, like someone clapping half a beat off. Then a crack forms in the wall. Not a dangerous one, more like a zipper in the stone yawning open to reveal a narrow tunnel glowing softly with blue light. The dwarves pause. A heavy-set miner with a hammer for a belt buckle steps forward and whispers, "Another one's ready." They all turn to look at you. "Go on then," says the spoon drummer. "It opened for you." You hesitate. Then you walk into the crack. The tunnel feels newer than the others, less worn. The walls hum faintly, like they're listening to your footsteps. As you move, the blue glow brightens, then dims again with each breath you take. You try walking faster. Bzzzt, it brightens. Slower, foomp, it fades. You realize the tunnel is reacting to your tempo. So naturally you dance, just a little at first. A step here, a pivot there. But the moment your heel clicks on the stone, in rhythm with your fingers, snapping, the entire tunnel flares with light and launches into a silent disco of sparkle veins and glowing moss confetti. You twirl, you moonwalk, you attempt the worm, and immediately regret it. Eventually, the tunnel opens into another chamber, smaller, but filled with light and warmth. This is no mine. It's something more sacred. At the center is a massive metal dome cracked open like a giant egg. Steam rises from within, and sparks occasionally arc out with a loud bzzap. A dozen dwarves move about in leather aprons and glowing goggles, wielding tools that look far too enthusiastic to be safe. You've entered the clockwork forge. A dwarf, with soot-covered arms and a headlamp built directly into his helmet, stomps over to you, brandishing what looks like a wrench, crossed with a duckbill. "Surface walker," he asks gruffly. You nod. He squints. "You look taller in the stories." Then he shrugs. "No matter. Come see this." He leads you to a workbench where a glowing piece of metal hovers above a magnetized platform. Runes flicker along its edges, forming and unforming shapes. At first you think it's a blade, but it's not. It's not anything yet. It's waiting for you, says the dwarf. Some call it the malleable inheritance. It takes shape based on whoever gets near it. You step closer, it quivers, and then it begins to twist. Slowly, elegantly, it reshapes itself into something long and flat with an ornate spiral handle. A key. No, the idea of a key. It hums in your presence. You feel it in your teeth. The dwarf claps. Well, would you look at that? Been a while since it chose that form. Last one was a dreamsmith who ended up turning moonlight into soup. What does it open, you ask? He shrugs. No clue. That's the fun part. Behind you, a loud argument breaks out. You turn to see two anvils in the corner of the forge, talking. One is sleek and polished, its surface gleaming like obsidian. The other is squat and pockmarked with cracks running through its top. They're bickering in a low, metallic dialect that sounds like sheet music being folded in half. Pay them no mind, the dwarf says. They've been arguing since the last eruption. One thinks everything should be made from dreams. The other swears by bones and boredom. You laugh because there's nothing else you can do. The key-like object cools quickly in your hands. It solidifies its glow, dimming but never quite going out. Take it, the dwarf says. You'll know when to use it. You tuck it carefully into your satchel, beside Clovook, the rock who emits a pleased chirrup. A loud horn sounds from somewhere up above. The dwarf looks up, expression shifting. Well, that's your cue. Council wants you again. He hands you a square of cloth that smells like iron and apricots. Wipe your face. You've got soot in your eyebrows. You glance at a polished gear and see that, yes, you look like a chimney sweep with a map tube and a magic key. Perfect. The horn echoes long after it stops lingering in your chest, like a vibration you forgot how to shake off. You follow a sloping staircase carved straight into the mountain's ribcage. Each step glows faintly underfoot, guiding you, urging you like the mountain is saying, "This way, silly surface thing, don't get distracted by shiny roots again." At the top, you emerge into a new chamber. It's cavernous, yes, but unlike the glittering markets or humming forges, this space feels ancient, heavy, reverent. There are no lights here, and yet you can see faint phosphorescence lines the edges of everything, columns that stretch into shadow stalactites that hang like quiet sermons, and a long table made of black glass that reflects none of its surroundings. It's set for one, and that one is you. You glance behind you, expecting a guide, a dwarf, a confused snail, courier, anything. But the doorway has vanished. You're alone now. Well, almost. Across from the table at the far end of the chamber sits something, a figure, unmoving, cloaked. Its beard, if it is a beard, spills across the floor like woven smoke. Its eyes are shut, its hands folded over the pommel of a staff made of petrified ashwood, are the color of old parchment. It breathes once, deeply, and the room responds. Every surface seems to draw in breath with it. Your own lungs feel borrowed now, like you've been invited to inhale with permission. The figure opens one eye and speaks. You've eaten the feast. Its voice is low and steady, like someone narrating a bedtime story to a mountain. You nod, trying not to squeak. You've mined with the beat, walked the name hall, and heard the silence between the stones. Good. It gestures to the table. Sit, drink. There are memories waiting. You sit. The chair doesn't creak, but it does emit a sort like it's assessing your posture. The table before you is empty until it isn't. A cup appears. It's filled with something gray and rippling like storm clouds trapped in tea. You look up. The figure nods once. Drink. You lift the cup. The moment the rim touches your lips, the temperature in the room drops. Not cold, but still, like time itself paused to see if you'll finish the sip. You do, and the memories come. Not yours, not anyone's really. They're stone memories, long, slow thoughts pressed into the rock by pressure and patience. You see visions of the world when it was nothing but fire and ash and deep, molten sighs. You see the birth of the first tunnels, not carved but coaxed, sung into being by voices that didn't need lungs. You feel the dwarf awake, a moment lost to surface world history. A pulse deep in the planet that woke the dwarves not from sleep, but from stillness. It wasn't a birth or a creation. It was remembering. The dwarves remembered themselves into existence. You open your eyes. The cup is gone. The figure smiles faintly. Most surface folk can't hold even one stone dream. But you handled 3. That's unusual. You clear your throat. What does it mean? The figure leans forward slightly. It means you might be ready. For what? He stands slowly. His robe unfurls behind him like a waterfall of woven dust. To see the heart forge. A pause. You've heard of it, haven't you? You haven't. But your map tube buzzes faintly against your side the moment he says it. Klovk lets out a suspicious squeal from your satchel. The key hums. He nods at your satchel. Ah, you've gathered the markers. He walks past you toward a seemingly solid wall, and then, with a tap of his staff, the wall peels open like a curtain of smoke. Behind it, a spiral stairway made of quartz that glows with its own breath. No one can force the heart forge open, the figure says over his shoulder. It has to want you. You follow him. The stair climbs not just upward, but inward. You feel yourself winding tighter and tighter into something very old and very alive. The stone here is veined with threads of moving color, slow rivers of thought and mineral. Every footstep you take leaves a faint echo behind you, which then climbs the stairs in reverse, whispering a note behind each heel. Somewhere along the way, you stop feeling like a visitor. You're something else now, something remembered. At last, the stairs end. A small platform waits. The figure stops raising his hand. This is the threshold, he says. Beyond this is the heart forge itself. It is particular. He turns. 3 things before you go in. You listen. 1, it knows what you've hidden. Don't lie. It will not hurt you, but it might ignore you. That's worse. 2, time bends differently in there. You may emerge having aged a minute or a month, possibly both. Wear it well. 3, when it asks, do not answer in words. Use the key. He taps your chest gently. You already know how. Then, without waiting for a reply, he walks backward into the shadows and vanishes. You step forward. The wall ahead is pure obsidian, silent, waiting. You take the key from your satchel. It shivers in your hand ready. You press it forward, and the wall melts. No opens. The stone doesn't part, it unimagines itself. Light floods through golden and blue and impossibly slow. You step into the brilliance, and the heart forge breathes. The first breath of the heart forge feels like being hugged by the planet itself. It's warm, but not hot. Heavy, but not suffocating. The air smells of old copper candle smoke and a breeze that reminds you of the moment between waking and dreaming. Light filters down from nowhere and everywhere, moving slowly across the chamber like it's swimming through syrup. You're not sure if your feet are on the ground or just remembering what the ground felt like. The room is enormous, more vast than anything should be inside a mountain. The walls pulse faintly with life. They're veined with molten gold, but not molten like lava, molten like memory, shifting, whispering, forming images, and then forgetting them. You catch glimpses. A dwarf child laughing underwater, a pickaxe striking a crystal that sings, a hand holding a star in a velvet pouch. At the center of the chamber is the heart forge. You know it instantly. It's not made of any material you've ever seen. It's stone and flame and something older than either, held together by thought and thunder. It rises from the ground like a throne designed by a dream, made of arcs and loops and impossible symmetry. Floating above it, suspended by sheer force of will, is a small dark shape, an orb pulsing slowly. It watches you. You don't know how, but it does. You step forward, and the entire forge flares, reacting to your motion like a heartbeat sinking to yours. Clockwork chirps nervously in your bag. The key hums like it's trying to stand up. You take it out. It's glowing now, not just from within, but along the etched spiral which is unraveling itself like a scroll of light. The moment you hold it in both hands, the heart forge speaks, not in words, not in sound, but in feeling. A question. What have you brought? You don't reply aloud. You simply close your eyes and feel back. Images rise behind your eyelids. The dizzying spiral bridge of your arrival, the cart full of giggling snails, the whispered nameplates in the hall of names, the taste of a flavor you forgot you loved, a key that chose you, a stone that purrs in your pocket. You don't say it, you offer it. The key rises from your hands, floats on its own, and begins to twist, slowly spinning in the air, spiraling upward into the space between you and the heart forge. The orb above the throne pulses once, then again, faster. The room darkens around the edges, leaving only you and the forge bathed in golden light. And then it happens. The key explodes, but not violently, not destructively. It shatters into pieces of radiant memory, each fragment curling into an orbit around the orb like moons around a sleeping planet. They spin and sing, forming a symphony that your ears can't hear, but your bones absolutely can. Then a thrum, a deep, full sound like a bell made of thunder. The orb lowers. You don't move. You can't. The orb comes closer until it hovers just inches from your forehead. It hums at a frequency that makes the hairs on your arms rise in perfect unison. Then, as if reaching out without hands, it touches your mind. You feel everything. You feel the weight of mountain bones, the laughter of stone, the dreams of hammers that want to be music. You see how the dwarves have shaped and reshaped their kingdom not out of need, but out of love, for sound, for pattern, for the quiet rhythm of becoming. And you realize something. The heart forge isn't just a place. It's a being. It's the memory of every hand that's ever held a tool in love. Every story carved into cavern walls. Every idea that sparked when rock met will. And now it remembers you. You step back. The orb slowly rises again, the shards of the key still orbiting it like fireflies caught in a magnetic field. Then, without a sound, they press inward and the key reforms. But it's different now, sleeker, sharper, lighter. It floats back into your hands, cool, calm, content. Your map tube buzzes again. You pull it out. Its bronze surface glows with dozens of new pathways, routes that weren't there before. Tunnels that bend around thoughts. Doors that open with rhythm. One route pulses brighter than the rest, a spiral that leads outward and up. You're not being shown how to go deeper. You're being shown how to return. The heart forge pulses once more, then quiets. The orb ascends to its resting place. The light dims, and the path behind you reopens. You walk backward slowly, not wanting to turn your back on whatever just happened. At the threshold, something strange occurs. A seed falls from the ceiling. No, not falls, floats. It's glowing faintly, made of crystal and memory. It lands in your palm. You don't know what it is, but you know what it means. The mountain just gave you a gift, a possibility. You tuck it gently into your satchel beside Dwarf, who hums in approval. Then, as the heart forge breathes once more, you turn and leave, back through the spiral stairs, where your footsteps now echo differently, like the mountain is repeating what it just learned from you. When you reach the bottom, the robed figure is waiting. He looks at your face, your satchel, your slightly singed eyebrows. He nods. So he says quietly, "It remembered you." You don't speak. You just nod. He turns, walking ahead. "This way, dreamwalker." The council's been whispering again. They believe the kingdom is about to shift. Shift. He doesn't stop. It does that sometimes. When someone stirs the forge. And now it's stirring because of you. You half expect the corridor outside the heart forge to be as hushed and mystical as the forge itself, still glowing with secrets and thick with ancient reverence. But instead, you step out into commotion. Joyous, organized commotion, mind you. The kind that feels like a festival, trying very hard not to seem like a festival. Dwarves rush about in ornate tunics with their sleeves rolled up, carrying glowing stones, steaming kettles, oversized paper scrolls, and in one case, a surprisingly elegant bouquet of sentient dandelions they sneeze every few seconds. The moment you appear, someone lets out a cry. They're back. A small crowd forms in seconds. Some cheer. Others gasp and clutch each other. One dwarf faints into a vat of soup that's promptly declared a ceremonial offering and served anyway. Your robed guide clears his throat and raises a palm. "Let the dreamwalker breathe, please. The key has been accepted. The forge has remembered. All is unfolding." The crowd murmurs reverently. A dwarf offers you a baked beet shaped like a duck. You accept it with the quiet dignity of someone who now owns a glowing memory seed and has recently seen their name whispered by a wall. The walk to the council chamber takes longer this time, not because the path has changed, but because the kingdom has. The very air seems more alert. Doors you hadn't noticed before now swing open as you pass. Ladders rearrange themselves overhead. Even the steam from distant vents rises in neat spirals. You get the feeling the entire mountain is watching you. When you arrive, the Gilded Council is already assembled. They stand around the great mosaic table, which now pulses with shifting maps, diagrams, and one inexplicable diagram of a goat with wings labeled "Do not attempt again." The leader, the one with the beetle shell robe and the staff of rune-bound oak, nods gravely. "You've stirred the heart forge." You nod back. A pause. She breaks into a wide grin. "Excellent." It was getting bored. The council bursts into chatter. What did it show you? Did it shift form again? Mine turned into a sock the last time. Don't laugh. Socks are deeply symbolic. Did it give you a seed? That last question hushes the room. You reach into your satchel and hold it up. The crystal seed floats slightly above your palm, pulsing gently like it's napping in a sunbeam. One of the council members gasps. "That's not just a seed. That's a promise core." You wait for an explanation. "It's a dream mineral," the bearded counselor in the monocle explains. They only appear when the kingdom senses a possible shift. Not guaranteed, but possible. A new tunnel, a new era, a new thought. The leader steps forward. This is bigger than any feast game or memory drink, she says. The last time a promise core appeared, we ended up inventing recursive pickaxes and reversed rain. You wait, she sighs. We still don't know how to dry the upside-down puddles. The goggled dwarf clears his throat. But we digress. What we need to know is, what do you intend to do with it? The room leans in, and so do you into yourself, into that strange stillness inside your bones. And the answer rises, unshaped, but real. I want to plant it. Another gasp. In the kingdom, someone whispers. No, you say slowly. On the surface, where I came from, silence. Then the leader lets out a long, slow exhale. That is bold. Another dwarf mutters, or extremely foolish, but none stop you. The monocle wearer adjusts his lens. It could take root. If it remembers you enough, it will, says the robed guide quietly. It knows this one. The leader tilts her head. Very well. If the seed chose you and you choose the surface, then we honor it. But you'll need a proper send-off. The Dreamrise path will open at dusk, and you'll take the long stair. The dwarves around the table murmur again. A few nod solemnly. One enthusiastic baker yells, I'll pack snacks. That evening comes quickly. Dusk in the dwarf kingdom is a strange thing. There's no sun, of course, but the moss changes color. The crystals dim. The sounds soften. Somewhere, a lullaby is hummed into the ventilation shafts. You're given a pack, modest, efficient, surprisingly lightweight. Chlorviker snuggles into the front pocket like a marshmallow made of stone. You hold the promise core in one hand, the newly refined key in the other. A small procession gathers. No fanfare, no horns, just quiet nods, shared looks, a few whispered blessings. You reach the stair. It stretches up, carved into a spiraling chimney of stone, lit by small floating lanterns that bob and drift like sleepy jellyfish. The top is out of sight. The leader is the last to speak. Whatever happens, she says, touching your shoulder, thank you for waking the kingdom. You take the first step. The stair rises behind you, swallowing the kingdom below into dreamlike silence. You climb, and as you do, the stair seems to respond. Stone softens, lanterns shift, and the key begins to glow, casting long, warm shadows ahead of you. Not ominous shadows, possible ones. At one landing, you find a bench, carved to resemble a long-necked dragon curled into itself. A plate of dream berries rests beside it, freshly sliced. A note reads, for the surface walker. You'll want a snack at elevation 700. You sit for a moment, look back. Nothing but spirals and soft light. Look forward. Nothing but possibility. You rise again and climb. The stair goes on, not painfully, not endlessly, but with a patience that feels strangely personal. It doesn't rush you. It doesn't wind too tightly. It lets you rest when you need to. Every 100 steps or so, there's a carved alcove, a gentle lantern, or a little shelf that holds a mysterious snack item labeled with confident but dubious names like cloud jerky, dream pretzels, unverified, and butter of questionable origin. Klorvik enjoys the jerky. You don't ask how, you just nod respectfully as he produces a tiny crumb from nowhere and hums what sounds like a sea shanty. Around step number 600 and something, the walls begin to change. The smooth carved stone gives way to something older, more chaotic. Chisel marks vanish. The shapes become irregular, like they were formed by thought instead of hand. Faint colors shimmer beneath the rock greens, deep blues, iridescent streaks, like oil slicks on ancient marble. You pause at a narrow landing and notice your reflection in a puddle, except you realize it's not your reflection. It's you, yes, but not right now. The version in the water is older, wiser perhaps, wearing clothes stitched with dwarven thread, and something that looks suspiciously like an eyebrow ring made of stardust. They nod at you solemnly, then blink and vanish. You look up. No more lanterns now. Instead, glowing moss forms a soft constellation on the ceiling above the stair. You realize the stars are moving, adjusting gently, pulsing in rhythm with your breath. You blink and the moss forms into shapes, a key, a mountain, a seed. The last shape is something you haven't seen before. A doorway, twisted, tall, covered in roots. You climb, and soon the air begins to shift. It smells like sky, not just open air, but sky. Breeze filtered through leaves. The distant crackle of lightning somewhere far away. A bird you've never met singing a lullaby you somehow remember from childhood. Then the walls fall away. You step out onto a narrow bridge of stone, a natural formation arched between two peaks of the mountain, high above a cavern that stretches so far down it fades into soft, violet mist. This is the Dream Rise path. You stop walking because the sky is there. It's not the surface sky. Not exactly. It's sky as the dwarves dream it. More vivid, more personal. Clouds are painted in brushstrokes of slow lightning. A second moon floats low, reflecting off the mist. The stars wheel overhead like gears clicking into place. And the wind sings, not loudly, not with words, just with a hush that says, almost home. You take a few steps forward. The bridge responds, rippling faintly underfoot. Not unstable, just awake. Each step leaves a momentary echo of light, as if the mountain wants to remember your footprints. Halfway across, you see a figure waiting at the other end. At first, you think it's a dwarf, but as you get closer, the details blur. Their shape is strange, not quite defined. Clothes like woven cloud, eyes like soft candlelight. They smile, though their face never fully resolves. You get the feeling that if you turned around too fast, they'd be made of fog. They raise a hand in greeting. You made it. You nod. Am I almost back? They tilt their head. Almost forward, more like. You wait. They gesture behind them. A door rises from the end of the bridge. Tall, twisting, root-covered, just like the moss stars showed you. It's not made of wood or stone, but of memory. Stories braided into form. The key hums in your satchel. This is it, you ask. The figure nods. Beyond here is where you came from, but not quite how you left it. You reach into your satchel. The seed pulses gently. The key, fully reformed from your time in the heart forge, seems to lean toward the door like a compass needle with very strong opinions. What happens when I open it, you ask? The figure shrugs kindly. Something small. Something enormous. A ripple. A root. A question that changes a path. They pause. Eyes narrowing slightly. Maybe a memory will grow where none was planted before. The wind quiets. You step forward. Your key slides into the door without resistance. It doesn't unlock, it remembers. The door opens, and everything shifts. For a moment you see two worlds at once. On one side, the kingdom behind you, shimmering with caverns and fires and forges with laughter echoing down stone halls. On the other, the world above. A forest at dusk. The same bridge you crossed when you first began this dream. Only now, the air is charged with possibility. You take one step across, and the seed begins to glow. It hums in your palm, ready. The door closes gently behind you. No slam, no finality, just a soft click, like a thought being saved. You are standing in the forest. The air is cool. The real moon, not quite as dreamy as the dwarves' version, rises above the trees. You feel something under your boots. The ground. Familiar. Solid. You kneel. And you plant the seed. Right there in the soil near the base of the bridge. It pulses once. Then settles. No instant growth. No beam of light. Just the quiet promise of something to come. Chlorvic wiggles in your pocket and hums a sleepy tune. The key is still in your hand. And as you walk down the trail, this time toward home, you realize something. You didn't just visit the kingdom. You left something behind. And you brought something with you. You walk the forest path like someone moving through the echo of a memory. The trees arch above, tall and still. But now, their leaves shimmer faintly, as if dusted with dreamlight. The dirt beneath your boots is the same color it's always been, but softer somehow, like the earth is listening. You hear no bird song, but there's music in the quiet, a low, gentle hum, like a forge cooling after a day's work. You glance back once. The bridge is gone. Not vanished, but reabsorbed, folded back into the world like a secret too shy to remain visible. You should feel alone, but you don't. Clove shifts in your pocket, letting out a satisfied little glurp. The seed's glow is gone, now settled back into the soil where you left it. But something lingers in the air, like a song that's finished, yet continues to hum beneath your thoughts. You walk on. Soon, The trees begin to thin. The light shifts more golden now, less filtered by moss and mystery. The sky is open. A breeze touches your cheek and doesn't smell like ancient tunnels or talking anvils, but like pine and distant campfires. Then you see it, the first sign of the surface world. A wooden signpost, weathered and crooked, stands just off the path. One arrow points left, etched with the word market. Another points right, reading home. A third arrow, smaller and newer, has been nailed just beneath the others. It reads, "The hollow that hums, bring a tune." You smile despite yourself. The kingdom hasn't fully let you go. You suspect it never will. You follow the home arrow, not because it's quicker, because something's pulling you that way. Not with urgency, but with curiosity. The kind that says, what if the old things remember you now too? As you walk, you begin to notice the changes, subtle at first. The rocks beside the trail have faint symbols scratched into them, ones that shift slightly when you look away. A mushroom near your foot vibrates with an almost imperceptible tink sound. A squirrel watches you pass, head tilted as if trying to remember where it's seen you before. A glimmer of metal catches your eye. You crouch. There, half buried in the soil, is a coin not from any mint you recognize. It's dwarven. Old, probably judging by the spiral on one side and the faint image of a forge on the other. You turn it over once before tucking it into your satchel. Clorvik lets out an approving squee, clearly hungry for a collection. You round a bend in the trail and find a wooden bench, one you're sure didn't used to be here. Carved into its backrest is a simple inscription for the traveler who returned with more than footsteps. You sit. Because, of course, you do. The wind picks up slightly, and for just a moment you swear you hear it. A voice, faint, far away, but unmistakably dwarven. Still got soot on your nose, dreamwalker? You chuckle aloud. A chipmunk flees in terror. The world is quieter now, but it's not empty. You feel layered, like you've slipped back into the surface world, wearing an echo of stone and song and slow forged memory. Every step feels dual part earth, part dream. The trail opens into a meadow. Golden light slants across the grass. The sky is pink at the edges, like someone softly erased the sun and forgot to close the file. In the middle of the field, a single tree stands, its trunk twisted, its branches strong, and nestled beneath it is a small worn stone with a spiral carved into its face. You kneel beside it. No inscription, just the spiral. You touch it gently. It thrums, not loudly, just enough to remind you it knows you. The spiral glows faintly, then fades again, not disappearing, resting, just like the promise core. You lean back on your heels and breathe. There's a stillness here, but not the kind that comes from absence. It's the stillness of a forge waiting for fire, of a story Between chapters, you sit beneath the tree for a while, watching the sky melt into evening. The stars, real ones, or at least what passes for real in a post-dream dwarven state, begin to show. You pull out the key. It no longer glows, but it's still warm in your hand, still balanced perfectly. You realize you could carry it with you from now on, not as a weapon, not as a tool, as a reminder of what lies beneath and what's possible above. Eventually you rise, not because you want to leave, but because it's time to see who you are now among people who didn't see you vanish, who never knew you disappeared, who won't believe half of what you could tell them and maybe shouldn't. But they might notice something, a glint in your eye, a patience in your breath, a strange humming sound from your pocket that can only be explained by introducing Clorvok, who at this point may be growing a mustache or a horn. It's hard to tell. You walk, and as the lights of home begin to flicker on in the distance, you realize something simple. The dwarves didn't give you a destination. They gave you a direction. And now you are quietly, curiously, impossibly changed. Home looks different when you return from a place that doesn't exist on any map. The town unfolds before you in gentle familiarity. Stone chimneys puffing thin ribbons of smoke into the twilight windows, glowing golden behind sheer curtains, and the low murmur of dinner conversation leaking from open kitchen windows. A cat regards you from a rooftop like you're a long-lost sibling who still owes it money. The bakery's sign swings gently in the breeze, its usual squeak now suspiciously replaced by a tiny chime that sounds dwarven. You step through the edge of town, and nobody screams or gasps or runs to hug you like you were presumed missing. Because as far as anyone knows, you just went for a walk. And somehow, that's comforting. The world has continued without pause, without a clue of the caverns and council, and the seed humming softly in the ground behind you. But as you pass familiar places, you begin to notice things. The cobblestones feel more organized, as if someone nudged them into rhythm while you were away. The lampposts flicker in three-beat patterns. Even the breeze has a cadence to it now, like it's humming a lullaby you almost remember. At the corner near the old clock tower, you spot a new addition, a stone bench that wasn't there before. Etched across its top, surface, meet below, share nicely. No one else seems to notice. You pause near a small park. Children chase one another through the grass. Someone's playing a tune on a stringed instrument that never stays in tune for long, but tonight it does. In fact, it sounds a little like the melody the pickaxes used in the mine. Coincidence, maybe, but probably not. You keep walking, satchels swaying at your side. Glorveg, now shaped like a worry stone with eyes, snoozes quietly in your pocket. Every so often, he releases a faint snore that sounds like someone flipping through a dictionary too quickly. You find yourself at your doorstep. The key in your hand, yes, that one. The one that once shattered in the heart forge and reassembled itself into something new, glows faintly. You realize you're holding it. Instead of your usual house key, you try it in the lock. It doesn't turn, but the door opens anyway. Inside, everything is as you left it. Mostly. There's a faint scent of mineral smoke in the air. A few items on the shelf seem subtly rearranged. Your favorite mug now sports a spiral motif. A small framed photo you're fairly certain used to show your grandparents now shows a younger version of you standing at the entrance of a cave with a faint glow emanating behind you. You stare, then blink. It's back to normal. You pour yourself a glass of water. It tastes faintly of time and wonder. The key rests on the table beside you. You don't remember setting it there. You reach into your satchel again almost automatically and pull out a folded map. It unfurls with a satisfying flutter, spreading across your tabletop like a living thing. The paper glows slightly. Familiar routes are still there. Main roads, wooded trails, the edge of the river. But there are new paths now, ones inked in soft silver, curling into hills you've never thought to explore. One is labeled Dream-Rich Orchard Seasonal. Another, beneath the hollow tree, Ask Twice. And then, at the very edge of the parchment, half faded. Only if you hum first, you smile, because now you understand. The kingdom didn't end when you stepped back through the door. It followed you. Or maybe it was always here, waiting for someone to notice. You fold the map again carefully this time. It feels less like paper and more like a promise. You place it by your bed. That night you don't fall asleep. You descend into sleep. The difference is subtle, but you feel it in your bones. The dream comes gently. You're walking a forest trail again, but this one shimmers. Every step leaves a ripple. The moon overhead hums softly, harmonizing with your heartbeat. And ahead, between two tall pines, stands a doorway, root-covered, spiral-marked, waiting. You don't have the key with you, but it doesn't matter. You are the key now. You step forward, and the door doesn't open. It remembers you. The dream folds around you like the embrace of a place that knows all your angles, even the ones you haven't discovered yet. You wake before sunrise. The world is quiet, but not empty. Somewhere beyond your window, you hear the gentle clang of a hammer striking rhythm into morning. It begins with a knock, 3 soft taps on your door. Too early for mail, too late for dreams. The sky outside is barely light, just a blush of silver behind the trees. You hesitate, robe half-buttoned mind, still curled up in bed like a cat, unwilling to move. The knock comes again. You open the door. No one there, just the morning mist curling at your feet. And on the welcome mat, something small, round and softly glowing. The seed, the one you planted by the bridge, except it shouldn't be here. You bend down to pick it up, but the moment your fingers graze its surface, it shifts, stretching gently into a shape more like an egg, or perhaps a tightly folded blossom. It's cool in your hand, but pulsing faintly like a heartbeat from very far away. Klorvak pokes his head out of your satchel, squints at it. and lets out a long theatrical sigh as if to say, "Oh, not again." You bring it inside and place it on the table. The glow dims a little. It seems shy, as if unsure whether it belongs here. "Me too," you whisper and sit beside it. An hour passes. You drink tea. You read a book that hasn't changed in years, but now somehow has an extra chapter. The seed remains still. Then movement. It unwraps. Petal by petal, layer by layer, the seed unfurls into something not quite mechanical, not quite organic. A spiral at its center rotates slowly, revealing a hollow core lined with mirrored crystal. For a moment, you see your reflection, except it isn't you. Now it's you as you could be. Robes stitched with dwarven thread, hands glowing with memory light, a trail of roots behind you. You reach into the hollow. There's something inside. A pebble. Oh no, not quite. A stone token like the ones the miners used during feast games, carved with a spiral on one side and on the other. A tiny doorway with 3 steps leading down. You recognize it immediately. The long stair. Beneath the image are 3 tiny runes. You don't read Dwarvish, but the meaning comes to you anyway. Return when ready. Your fingers close around the token. You feel something stir in your pocket. The map. You unfold it again. There, in the bottom right corner where before there had only been empty parchment, a new marking pulses faintly. The listening hill once in a quiet while. Clorvu lets out a pleased bloop and does a lazy cartwheel inside your bag. Outside, the morning has bloomed fully into day. And something is calling, not urgently, not even loudly, but with presence. You gather your things, not because you're in a hurry, because it's time. The path to the listening hill lies at the edge of town, past the old quarry trail, across the river stones, and through the bend, where the sun always seems to hit the moss just right. You walk quietly, but the world around you hums with subtle change. Birds chirp in pentatonic scales. Bees buzz in minor chords. Even the wind seems to carry a faint dwarven rhythm. At last, you reach the hill. It's not very tall. It's not very special. Until you sit. Then everything listens. The trees stop rustling. The wind stills. Even the clouds seem to slow, like the sky itself is leaning in. You hold the token and whisper just one word. Maybe it's a name. Maybe it's the name you heard in the Hall of Names. Or maybe it's the name of who you are now. It doesn't matter. The spiral glows, and beneath you, the ground opens. Not like an earthquake, not with violence. It simply unbuttons like a coat you've worn all your life without realizing. A staircase spirals down into the soft glow below. And waiting there at the top step, a familiar, robed figure, the one from the Heart Forge. Only now, their eyes glow faintly. You came back. You nod. I wasn't sure I would. They smile. The kingdom never closed. It only waited. You step onto the stair and descend, but not the way you did before. This time, the spiral opens wider. The walls are smoother. The path hums with recognition. At one landing, a glowing plaque reads, "Surface Dreamer, now bearer of the seed returned. Another one, ask no questions. The stone will remember for you. At last, you emerge into a new chamber, smaller than the heart forge, simpler, but no less alive. A table waits, and on it a garden, tiny, alive, growing. From the soil shaped like the one you knelt on beneath the tree sprouts a crystal vine, spiraling, soft pulsing, whispering something only your bones can translate. You kneel beside it, not to tend it, but to listen. The garden is not just a memory, it is a beginning. You sit by the garden for a long while, though time has stopped insisting you measure it. The crystal vine gently sways despite the absence of wind. It grows not by inch or leaf, but by memory, each pulse of light expanding the spiral just slightly, as if echoing a story too patient for words. Around its base, a scattering of glimmering moss begins to bloom, spelling nothing and everything. The chamber is warm and quiet, lit by slow breathing walls that cast gentle gold across your hands. Clorvk naps beside the vine, flattened like a melted marshmallow, releasing the occasional dreamy snoreful. The robed guide stands a little ways off watching. You finally speak. What is this place? They tilt the head thoughtfully. It's called the root word room. But that name shifts. Sometimes it's the spiral hearth. Sometimes the memory nest. You run your fingers through the moss. Is it real? They chuckle, but gently. Is anything after the heart forge? You don't press. Because you understand now. This isn't about answers. This is about presence. It's about what happens when you return, not just as yourself, but with the shape of your journey still warm in your chest. The guide kneels across from you. The promise core. You planted it, woke something down here. A resonance. The mountain remembers. But not just itself. You nod. It remembers the surface now. They touch the soil. And soon, the surface will remember us. You glance toward the garden. More vines are unfurling now. Tiny crystal-threaded petals stretch toward a ceiling that hums softly in encouragement. Each one is unique. Some shaped like spirals, others like keys, some like the curling breath of a storyteller on a winter night. The guide speaks again. There's something else. The council has reconvened quietly, not for ceremony this time, but for continuity. They're preparing to open a new path. You raise an eyebrow. To where? They look at you steadily. To between. The word lingers in the air like mist. You've shown us something, they continue. That the threshold between dream and waking is not a line. It's a web, a weave, something that can be shaped. They reach into their robe and produce a small satchel. It glows faintly and hums just a little, your key's twin in temperament. This is for you. You open it slowly. Inside is a spindle-smooth stone, etched with runes notched at both ends, like it once held thread. It thrums with potential. What do I do with it? The guide shrugs, smiling. That's up to you. Some use it to weave thought into thread. Some use it to remember places that never were. Some, they glance at Clover, now sleep gurgling a tiny tune. Just use it to wind their daydreams tighter. You hold it close. The key glows faintly on your belt. The token rests warm in your pocket. The map, oh, the map has already unrolled itself again and begun adding layers. Not just paths now, but moods, times of day, whether the trees along one trail are feeling cooperative. You look around the rootward room. The chamber has begun expanding. Or maybe it always was. Along the edges, you now see corridors leading outward, each one lit by a slightly different hue. One pulses, blue, cool and whispering. Another glows amber, filled with distant laughter. A third smells faintly of cedar and thunder. These lead to... You start. The guide finishes. The other dreamers, or the ones who might be. The kingdom has decided it no longer wants to be forgotten. You sit with that. Then, why me? They smile again. Not with certainty, but with understanding. Because you listened. Because you climbed. Because you planted something without needing to know what it would become. You run a hand along the crystal vine beside you. It leans into your touch, and then a strange thing happens. The vine emits a note. A single clear ringing tone that settles into the air like a bell at the end of a long sentence. You feel it in your chest. The guide stands. That's your signal. Signal for what? To take your rhythm with you. You rise slowly, back to the surface. They nod. But not away from here. You're part of both now. The door doesn't close. It just waits. You gather your things. The key, the spindle, the token, the map, which has somehow now printed a list of trail snacks recommended by unverified moss sages. Clorvuk yawns and oozes into your pocket, purring like a small furnace. Before you leave the rootward room, you turn once more to the vine. It has begun to sing, a slow, spiraling melody, one you didn't know you remembered. You hum along, and the chamber hums with you. As you walk the corridor back toward the long stair, the walls echo not your footsteps, but your tune. And somehow you know you're not leaving. You're carrying. The long stair rises before you again, spiraling gently up toward the surface. But now it feels less like an exit and more like a passage between songs. You rest your hand on the railing and it's warm, not with heat, but with familiarity, like stone that has memorized your presence. Each step carries a rhythm now, not the old rhythm of descent, with its echoes of secrecy and shadow, but the rhythm of return of someone who knows both what lies below and what waits above, and walks the line between them like a melody returning to its root note. Clorvik rests in your pocket, quiet for once. Not asleep, just listening. Every so often, he emits a soft chirrup, the kind of sound you'd expect from a drowsy stargazer rolling over in a hammock. The air grows lighter with each turn of the stair, not thinner, just brighter, full of suggestion. Somewhere far above, birds begin to sing, and the scent of pine and warm moss returns to greet you like an old friend. You pass the landing where the dreamberries once waited, now in their place, a folded scrap of parchment and a tiny polished stone. You unfold the note. Your echo made it here before you. We hope it wasn't too forward. Signed the spiral chorus. You pocket the stone. It hums once pleased. When you reach the final curve of the stair, something strange and wonderful awaits. Not a door, not a hatch, but a threshold. An opening in the rock, rimmed with flowering roots. Each bloom faintly glowing, shaped like memory fragments. The anvil that sang the mosaic table of the council. The steam vents that whispered lullabies. And beyond the threshold, a field, not a dream. Not quite the waking world either. Something in between. You step into the morning. The sun is rising shyly. Not grand and golden, but soft like a lantern peeking around a curtain. The grass beneath your feet is damp with dew, and tiny mushrooms, shaped like musical notes, dot the soil. A breeze dances through them, playing a melody so subtle you wouldn't know it was a song unless your heart had been tuned by the deep kingdom. You walk toward town, no fanfare, just the quiet unfolding of a new day. As you pass the stone bench again, you see something new. A second spiral freshly carved. You sit and you wait, not for anything specific, just to listen. And in the hush of morning, it begins. The world speaks back. A cricket chirps in a rhythm you remember from the dream rise path. The rustling leaves echo the forge's breathing. Even the passing wind pauses to ruffle your hair like an affectionate librarian. You pull out the map again. It's larger now, marked with new paths expanding both inward and outward. One trail is labeled the Museum of Forgotten Tomorrows. Another, Tunnel 0.5, only visible at dusk during a sneeze. You smile because nothing's finished, and everything wants to be shared. You feel your story no longer has a neat beginning and end. It loops now, spirals, grows like the vine in the rootward room. You carry it like a song, like a spindle full of thread that winds through waking and dream, like a door that doesn't close, just waits. You rise from the bench. The seed you planted may be gone from sight, but its roots, they're everywhere. And in your hand, the spindle hums again, ready to weave the next dream into the waking world. You head down the hill, into morning, into memory, into possibility. And now, let the story soften. Let the rhythm slow. You've walked through the depths of stone and song, through corridors that whispered your name before you even arrived. You've stood before councils and climbed between layers of memory, carrying a glowing seed whose promise was never loud but constant. Let that promise settle in you now. Feel your shoulders loosen, your breath drift in gentle waves. You are no longer ascending or descending, just floating in that safe in-between where thoughts ripple like starlight on slow water. You've seen what lies beneath the surface, how even silence hums with intention, how every forgotten path may still lead somewhere, if you walk it slowly enough. And now you bring that stillness back with you. Let it root. Let it spiral softly inside. And if tonight you find yourself dreaming of doorways of music blooming from stone of keys that open not locks but memories, just know that part of you still walks that kingdom, that the mountain remembers, and the dream never really ended, only changed shape. So rest now. Let your thoughts uncurl. Let the spindle pause. You are safe here. The dream hums softly in the walls around you. And the door, it's still there, waiting, just in case.